Yo dog, Kenny Boucher here, Next Level Painting, hitting you up on the literal best of all days, coming to you from the Beats Lab in Hollywood, California. Let's do some art today. But first, ask yourself a question. Why is this orc's gun painted this way? More importantly, what's with this orc's unique skin color? It's a little off, right? Well, there's a story behind it. Back on Twitch on our last live stream, we challenged ourselves to reach into our box of paints, grab a handful of paints, and we had to use some combination of the paints we pulled. Jade, Faded Ultramarine, and luckily Necrotite Green. That's why he looks that way. Now here's the challenge today. This is my wet palette from the last show. It's actually about a week old. We challenged ourselves today to paint this orc weapon only using paints on our wet palette. If you remember from our last video, we covered how these wet palettes can keep your paints preserved for days, even weeks. So that's the challenge. We're going to do a little art today, experiment, do a little bit of an exercise. So I'm going to go with the red, mixed it in with a little bit of that blackish blue. There was actually some blue in that black, so it's a little unique. We're going to do a quick base coat, kind of thin, but not too thin. We ain't trying to spend a billion seconds waiting for super thin coats of red to dry. So there it is. Nice, solid, interesting look to that red, being that it's transparent over that unique jade blue, kind of green. Now we're going to do a second pass, maybe, introduce a little bit more of the red into the mix, a little bit less of the blackish blue. And we are going to kind of use a little bit of a glaze here, keeping the paint real thin, real loose. We're going to just kind of drag it over the top of the gun. Let it just do its thing, be a little transparent. It's going to take a few minutes to dry though, because it is so thin, and we used a little Vallejo flow improver to manipulate it, to kind of breathe some life back into that pile of red, which has been sitting on my palette for days. All right, check it out. I'm going to run some of that magenta. Maybe it's pixie pink, I can't remember. Multiple streams ago. So we're going to start pinking it up a little bit, okay? Keeping it real thin again. We're going to be using light brush pressure, just letting it happen, you know what I mean? Being loose, being artistic. Sometimes you just have a fun day in the Beats Lab, you're laying down some paints, listen to your audiobook, and just keeping it low, stress, therapeutic, man. That's the best part about art. So we're just going to lay it down, drag it down almost exactly the same we did before. We're going to let the hue of this red now with the pink in it shift some of those highlights. Real easy, low impact. It's looking real good. I mean, I almost want to keep it that red, but I feel like I want to desaturate it a little bit. We're going to keep going with these pinks, and now we're going to introduce the white. Now you guys know, if you've been following the channel, desaturating your colors is real easy. I'm not going to walk you through it. We just did the same thing again, let it dry, and now I'm going in for the second step here. We're using a bit of a smaller brush, kind of getting a little streaky on purpose. I like that organic style. I oftentimes see other artists doing a little bit more organic, a little bit more visible brushstroke style, and I envy it. I think it's a really cool technique. I'm not very versed in it. I'm typically chasing super crisp lines using the Airbrush razor edge highlights, so I want to play around. I want to have a little bit of fun here. So I'm just purposely being a little loose, a little sloppy, trying to discover the technique. We're going to now grab an even smaller brush. We're going to introduce a little bit more of the white, and we're going to be doing a little bit of a raw edge highlight, but then we're going to reach back for a little bit of flow improver, and we're going to fuzz the white out. It's almost like a two brush blend where someone would have two brushes, one with the pigment, one with the medium. We're just reaching back for the flow improver, dispersing it, using light brush pressure, a little stippling technique. We're just kind of dispersing the aggressiveness of those lines and letting it kind of glaze and transition back into what we've already done. And this is where it's going to start to saturate and shift the look of this weapon to this pinkish purple. And the reason it's maybe slightly purple is because there was a green with a blue in it underneath everything, and that black we initially mixed in with the red did have a small bit of blue in it. Same thing, we're going to draw some really aggressive lines, keeping it fun, reaching back for some flow improver, and we're just going to fuzz that line out, let it fade in. And because you have added so much white to the color at this stage, it is desaturating that red and that pink, giving us a fun look. Really enjoying myself during this project. Same thing, we got a bunch of cool little runes etched into the gun. We're going to trace those out using our small brush. More of an edge highlight, staying a little bit more precise, but I am trying to challenge myself to move a little quick. Be a little purposefully sloppy, but hopefully in a clean way, if that makes sense. I don't know. Kind of playing with this technique. All right, let's shift back to the wet palette. Now what are we gonna do? grab some of this black, which like I said, this black you can see clearly has a faded ultramarine in it. It's got blue in it. So it's very unique. Now I want to take this and I want to start lining out some of the shadows and doing kind of the same thing and fuzzing those shadows back into the red and pink. So we're going to lay some hard shadows. Now it looks really aggressive, but you remember that paint was super thin. It looks hard in comparison, but you see we're using light brush strokes, so just feathering this black as a shadow, as a dark tone, just kind of coming right into it. And because it's so transparent, because of the nature of the glaze technique, it will shift the hue and let some of those blues play off the reds and the pinks, bringing us, you know, a little bit closer to a super desaturated purple suddenly. And now I'm going to sneak some into the runes, into the recesses to kind of like pop the contrast out. Just going where my paintbrush takes me. We're not overthinking it. We're just enjoying ourselves. I find it to be a fun exercise sometimes and just challenge yourself to do something kind of weird off the wall. I've been doing art for many years and I still find interesting ways to challenge myself. You know, don't overthink the project. Oh, what colors I'm going to use? What's the color through here? I didn't have a plan. The plan was no plan. I'm enjoying it. We're going to do a second pass, same technique, reinforce some of those shadows, you know, pick it up anywhere we see that it could use a couple more strokes, do a couple final spot inspections, make sure it's looking good, but I'm not super obsessed with the crispness of those transitions or the flawlessness. I'm having fun. Now we're going to grab the super small brush again, a little bit more of that white, and we're going to kind of reinforce a couple of these sections to help them pop off a little bit, holding the model at the correct angles. Try to trace along some of the razor edges. Some places you're just going to have to raw dog it in, come in almost like with freehand technique. You're just drawing along these lines that already exist, but there's no kind of border to guide your hand. That's when you want to get tight, you know, lock the hands together, stay tight on the table, kind of improve your stability. Still got the right technique for the job. Runes are looking good. This Orky shotgun looking fresh. Yo, let me shout out the company real quick. This is a Spellcrow Orc. Okay, Spellcrow was one of our sponsors over on the Twitch show. We're giving away tons of Spellcrow minis, and these guys provided me with a bunch of cool stuff. I instantly saw this orc with this mohawk, and we just did the noise marine, so I was like, this is like an orc noise marine. So I'm 100% behind it. Orc noise. Look at that. So we're just crisping them up, you know, like putting some aggressive whites in there. And, you know, we're going to go back and disperse them again. It's just a back and forth technique. No overthinking it. Just keep it going. Enjoy yourself in that beat slab, wherever it may be. There we go. Super dispersed white. You see on my finger how watered down it is. We're using that now after that dried to just fuzz the border back in and further, because it's so white, just saturate as it transitions so thin with that glaze technique and just takes on the qualities of what's under it. It's definitely going to desaturate it, but it's staying bright, it's staying crisp. There's plenty of contrast there. It's looking real good. I'm having a blast with this. I didn't know where we were going to go when we started the project. We did this all here in the studio today. Literally no preparation. I just knew today was going to be the day that I guessed, you know. Now we're going to reinforce some of the blacks, maximize that contrast, have it look its best, its sharpest. It's real easy. Contrast two-way street, make the bright things brighter and make the dark things darker. That's typically how I approach it. And so here in these most deep recesses that delineate between the sections, I'm going to be almost drawing a hard line. Still pretty thin, and it is that black blue still, so it is going to be basically a super desaturated purple again. Really interesting as it takes on the qualities of the reds. Okay, got the crisp brush out again, back and forth. We're going to pop a little bit more on those runes using some of the white pink that we mixed up earlier. Still just chilling on the old wet palette, doing its thing. It's probably going to be there when we go live on Friday. We might even pull it back out again and work on this guy a little bit more. As you guys know, we do a live stream on Twitch every Tuesday, every Friday, and every Saturday. We bang them minis out, doing paint, doing art together as a community. It's a blast. If you haven't, definitely follow us on Twitch in the description box below. Final highlights, final pops. bringing them razor edges into the orc shotgun, blunderbuss, whatever. Oh, hey, look, that line kind of got away from us. It got a little fatter than I wanted it to be. No worries. Instantly, we're reaching over for the wet palette, grabbing some of that flow improver I laid out, and we're just going to kind of stipple it in and disperse it to a little fuzz back in. A little subtractive method. Real easy. There it is. It's going to thin itself. As it dries, it'll be very muted. It'll look beautiful. Here we go. But hey guys, now we completed that task and it's on to the next. But hey guys, let me shout out a couple of clutch individuals this month over on Patreon, our personal crowdfunding page. Thank you guys so much. And if you like this video, hit that subscribe button. Play on, players. If you like these tutorials, check out Next Level Painting on Patreon. Become a patron of the arts today. We offer early and exclusive access to our videos and a rewards program for different pledge levels. Patreon is PayPal and credit card secure, so you don't have to worry about that. We use 100% of the money to improve our process.